Let's move on to one of my favorite teams. I know you're not as strong on them as I am. We got the Frazier Commodores at 3-7 last year, 2-5 in conference. They won 3 out of 4 down the stretch. That's exciting for them. They almost beat Carmichael's, 2-5 in conference. Greg Boggs returns, 12 starters on offense, 12 starters on defense. Well,
12,
all of this
12 starters?
12 contributors.
Okay, I was just, I
Yeah.
was like, last time I checked, there's only 11, but on the field. But no, you know what you're talking about, so just
Okay.
go ahead. They're your team, so go ahead.
They only really graduated 2 major players, and that was Shane McGavitt, a true power back, and then I think Robert Murphy on the defensive line. With all of this with all of this returning experience, will all of it pay off for them this season?
I'm gonna get on your bandwagon. The answer is yes. This will definitely help the Commodores. I really like Frazier this year. I really like Kenny Fine. I really like Braden Boggs. Not as much as you, but I've watched Braden Boggs tape. Braden Boggs is really impressive. Kenny Fine's definitely a great athlete to have. Something Frazier needs in this conference to compete. I really like this team. I have them in the playoffs in my predictions of the standings, which we'll give at the end of the podcast. I'm sure Nathan will have them much higher than I do, but I do have the Commodores in the playoffs. I really like this team's chances this year. What I've seen on tape from last year, what you've been telling me for the last 9 months, it feels like now on this team. But yeah, definitely big things for the Commodores this year, and still young. I believe they lose Kenny Fine after this season. Maybe have him for one. Is he a senior, Nathan? You know that
He's
better
like
than I
the
do.
only major contributor that's senior too,
Yeah.
which is
Okay. Yeah.
exciting.
So that's what I was gonna say. This is the year, kind of. I think they put their foot in the door of the playoffs. They unfortunately lose Kenny Fine. So another big thing is, they find that second receiver to help them, for sure, or that second athlete. It doesn't necessarily have to be a receiver for Frazier. Find that second athlete to help Kenny Fine this year and Braden Boggs, and then make that other athlete, whoever steps up to be that next guy. You got to have that next man up mentality, and then help, Boggs and the Commodores into next season. That'll be big. I think this team is not necessarily this year for making around the playoffs, but possibly next year at the AA level, making a run.
Another name that kind of goes unnoticed is Sean Fordyce, and he was kind of down the stretch main target for Braden Boggs at the receiving end. Hopefully, we're able to see him kind of develop into more of a constant threat for them. For last podcast, I put this question in: is Kenny Fine the best player in the conference? Now I can confidently say he is not, but he's still, one of the best athletes in the conference for sure. How is he going to affect the games for the Commodores? He's just such a difference maker for them. Is he going to help them, compete against teams like Wash High or McGuffey?
Yeah, back to on why we're confident that he's not anymore. I never was. No offense, Kenny Fine, by any means. I just thought there was always someone else, but we'll get to that at the end. We might be the first outlet to break this story, so it's kind of exciting, I guess. I mean, I don't know if they want it broke, but we're gonna break it. And yeah, Kenny Fine, back to him. Yeah, his athleticism is going to be big, and it's going to help Frazier on both sides of the ball, not just offense but on defense. His speed is, I don't want to say unmatched, but to most teams in this conference, it is unmatched. Now with the likes of McGuffey, Wash High, possibly even Waynesburg Central. I know they have a couple guys who can put on the afterburners for them. We'll see what kind of athlete Kenny Fine really is in those games. This year it'll be big, but in the other games, I look for him to, show his breakaway speed, and rack up tons of yards, all-purpose yards really for Kenny Fine.
Yeah, and he's going to have a good quarterback to distribute him the ball too. You mentioned Braden
Absolutely.
Boggs' tape. Him and Colby Coons, that's going to be a fun rivalry for the next couple of years in this conference. Obviously, Frazier Beth Center is already a huge rivalry as it is, but having those two guys face off each other once every year for the next couple of years, that's going to be super exciting. I mean, they already had one fun shootout in the mud last year. I can't imagine what it's going to be like for the next couple of years. But you watch Braden Boggs' tape. Is there any improvements that you can see, or is he legitimately a contender for maybe the best quarterback in this conference?
Things he could work on. His arm strength a little bit. You know, I don't know how much like as far as he's definitely accurate. I'm not going to deny that. Kid's got accuracy. As far as arm strength, letting it sling down the field, and you know his dad's the coach, so I mean, maybe they'll let that come with age. You know, maybe they're just letting him kind of get feel the shoes a little bit. You know, and I'm sure he's worked on that over the off season. And then again, maybe I'm not saying this kid isn't strong by any means. I'm just saying, what I saw on the tape, I didn't really notice them airing it out a lot, and maybe that will change this year. Maybe that's what they plan on doing. Just airing one out and letting Kenny Fine or other wide receivers run under it and make a play out of it. So that, but he's definitely mobile. He's definitely mobile. He's a little shorter for a quarterback position. Um, for my liking, but he's definitely got good mobility. He can sling the ball. A lot of slant routes Frazier likes to run, and all that. So that'll be fun to watch, them air it out a little bit and look for him to run the ball a lot too. I'm sure they have QB powers and whatnot, maybe a little misdirection here and there. So it should be interesting to see for Frazier this year. I think if you're a Frazier Commodore follower, I think this will be a fun year that leads into the next few years. I think it's a good time to be a Frazier Commodore.
Yeah, and even losing, Shane McGavitt from last year, Kenny Fine is definitely more of an east-west runner than a north-south runner. So having Braden Boggs, having some of that QB power stuff is going to be important for them, just to add another dimension to their offensive game plan. I have their most intriguing game, an away game, September 25th at McGuffey. That's coming right off of that Ligonier Valley game. So I think it's important if they want to continue the season, maybe compete for a playoff spot. That game's going to be important. If they're just even able to compete in that game, it's a tough away game against one of the leaders in this conference. And Ligonier Valley, that's not going to be a fun matchup for them. Looking at multiple double-digit loss, most likely against, Ligonier Valley is perennially, a quarterfinal team in 2A. So it's going to be important for them to rebound against the Highlanders, another tough opponent 2 weeks in a row.